At the direction of the DI, investigators traced activity to several of Mexico's most powerful criminal groups: Jaliscoan, the Gulf Cartel, the Innova family, Michana, and the Sinaloa Cartel. At precisely 5:45 hours near Sunland Park, New Mexico, desert radar suddenly registered movement. 6 armored vehicles crept north with engines low and lights extinguished. Inside Camp Bliss Joint Border Command, alarms did not blare, but every monitor immediately turned red. Thermal imagery revealed about 30 armed figures advancing in formation. "Those aren't smugglers," a Marine analyst observed. "That's a convoy." Colonel Evan Riley examined the imagery. The trucks bore steel plating, rooftop mounts, and satellite radios, and they were headed straight for a vulnerable stretch of the border fence, the same section scouted by drones. Nights before, recon units were already deployed. Marines lay concealed in dry washes, weapons steady and optics trained. An RQ-9 Reaper latched onto the convoy and began streaming live coordinates. The lead truck slowed. Sparks flew as a torch cutter tore through the fencing. The breach had started. If you believe no foreign force should set foot on American soil, subscribe now, because what followed showed exactly why the U.S. Marines exist. Over the net, Riley's voice stayed steady. "Hold positions, confirm the incursion before engaging." Moments later, sensors validated movement on U.S. ground, and authorization lit the board. Gunnery Sergeant Colmason murmured over his headset. 10 targets, moving in tight coordination. They know what they're doing. Through night optics, figures fanned out. Rifles raised, not lost migrants, but fighters wearing cartel insignia and tactical armor. Then Marine warning flares lit the sky. JLTV carriers thundered from cover, loudspeakers cutting through the wind. U.S. Marines, drop your weapons. For a handful of seconds, the attackers froze. One reached for his rifle. Precision fire disabled the lead vehicle's tires. Another truck careened into the sand. Smoke rose as Marines swept forward in a half-moon formation, controlling every angle. The assault force was quickly pinned. There were no American casualties. Several suspects were down. Others surrendered with weapons stacked on the ground. Remaining fighters retreated through the breach, abandoning radios, ammunition, and encrypted tablets. When the dust settled, only twisted metal and desert silence remained, though everyone knew the battle was not the final chapter. Microdrones launched from Marine pads and followed the escape trail. One feed showed a second convoy idling just south of the border, reinforcements that hadn't received a signal to advance, which reversed and vanished into Mexican territory. Colonel Riley paced the perimeter, sand crunching underfoot. "Clock their response time," he said quietly. "They wanted to test how fast we move. Now they know." Although the immediate operation ended quickly, the material left behind told a deeper story. Custom-built armor, American-made optics, and maps of New Mexico highways, evidence of careful planning. Drones traced retreat signatures miles into Chihuahua. What appeared to be a failed raid could be the opening move of something larger, an organized force probing U.S. defenses along the southern corridor. Back at command, analysts found the same encrypted call signs cropping up across the border. The first wave had been repelled, but another was already preparing. Thermal sweeps revealed faint heat signatures south of the line. Dozens of disturbed burial sites and tire tracks leading into Chihuahua. These were not random hiding spots, but staging areas. Recovered radios carried encrypted traffic linking 3 known cartel zones in northern Mexico, and one frequency pulsed with data bursts, matching coordination patterns previously observed in other border regions. Packet analysis revealed GPS waypoints, warehouses, dry riverbeds, and abandoned ranches, not escape routes, but staging zones. A photograph circulated in the operations tent, a sandblasted emblem on a captured truck, a skull flanked by 2 scorpions. "That mark belongs to Losa, scorpions, Negroes," Riley said, naming a Sinaloa splinter cell noted for smuggling fighters rather than drugs. "They're running men now." A live drone feed then showed a convoy inside Mexico loaded with crates the size of fuel drums, each wrapped in thermal covers. Analysts labeled it a potential weapons transfer. The Reaper zoomed in. A driver wore the same skull and scorpion patch. The convoy sat just outside a small farming town off official roads, a likely tunnel or hub site. Mason on comes noted smugglers often use such farms to move gear undercover. Riley ordered reconnaissance teams to move in at first. Light, cross, rugged terrain. Recover intel from abandoned containers, and search for hidden shafts before local patrols arrive. Marines reached the dig site and found buried equipment, military-grade communications boards, satellite relays, and drone batteries, items no ordinary smuggler should possess. One uplink light still blinked toward orbit. They powered the unit down and hauled it back to base. Digital forensics confirmed a chilling link. The board had been pinging coordinates to servers, traced to cartel safe houses, and an offshore host in Venezuela, evidence of outside coordination, possibly training or funding beyond Mexico. This was not a local gang. It was a transnational network using cartel cover to test us defenses. Discussion shifted from defense to preemption. Could American forces strike across the line if evidence showed foreign involvement? Rules of engagement made clear there could be no incursion without executive sign-off. But the pattern on the screens suggested a series of probing moves designed to buy time. Marines redeployed along the fence line and buried autonomous ground sensors, silent sentries, to detect footsteps at long range. Those sensors began pinging again. Movement in Sector 4 triggered an immediate platoon response. Vehicles slipped across moonlit terrain with headlights off, silhouettes cutting through the dark. This time, the reinforcements were not fighters in tactical gear, but technicians hauling portable drills and generators, attempting to reopen the breach. Before they could reach it, Marine UAVs struck from above, scattering sonic flares and forcing every tool to the sand. The second infiltration collapsed without a shot. Detainees were taken and many bore identical wristbands, marked with cartel insignia and payment codes. Captured data exposed a coordinated operation spanning multiple border states. Encrypted chatter from deep inside Mexico continued to stream coordinates. Analysts decrypted a repeated phrase across frequencies. La Voz del Sur. Abunza translated as the voice of the South. Advances. That signal indicated another wave was forming, and likely to come with greater force. Thermal feeds soon painted a long line of heat signatures moving north along a wide stretch of terrain, a military-style formation with pickups, mounted with weapons, armored SUVs, and off-road bikes in support. Intelligence estimated dozens of fighters. Command activated Operation Sand Barrier. Marine assault teams moved out under blackout conditions, guided by infrared beacons and Hornet overwatch. The convoy tried to split its columns to mask radar signatures, but drones marked every vehicle. Gunnery Sergeant Mason noted they were trained for this. Riley answered, "So are we." As the hostile columns entered the planned engagement area, the Hornet executed a precision strike. Explosions ripped through the valley. Several vehicles were destroyed and survivors fled south. Marine teams closed in, cleared trucks, and cataloged recovery coordinates. Drones continued to track transmissions and uncovered something worse than reinforcement movements. A field commander's transmission hopping between encrypted nodes, whose origin was traced not to Mexico, but to a warehouse on U.S. soil just outside Los Cayos. Riley ordered a joint raid. By nightfall, federal agents and Marines breached the logistics hub, outwardly ordinary, but inside a command center disguised as a repair bay. Racks of radios, hard drives, currency counters, and an active server streaming coordinates in real time lined the walls. The routes linked New Mexico, Texas, and Arizona, a tri-state corridor for personnel and weapons. Footage from the site showed embedded foreign tactical advisors and blueprints of U.S. border installations and airfields intelligence no ordinary criminal syndicate could have. Collected alone. This was a probe, Riley said over the evidence table. They wanted to see whether we would hesitate to fire on U.S. soil. They did not. Outside, the scent of burned fuel and metal drifted across the border. Intelligence traced financial flows from cartel shell accounts through offshore holdings in several countries, confirming the operation had been financed and timed with precision. Washington issued an interagency alert. Marines remained at high readiness, and air assets rotated over the border. On the ground, the mood shifted. One successful action did not end the campaign. Evidence indicated another cell assembling in Sonora, moving with heavy cargo. An analyst flagged references to missiles and intercepted messages. Drones spotted trucks heading north with metallic containers. Command tracked every movement via satellite. Targets were confirmed, and authorization was granted. Precision strikes neutralized the convoy, and ground teams advanced to inspect the wreckage. Inside the destroyed containers, Marines found arrays of drone launchers loaded with dispersal pods, proof the operation had crossed from smuggling into active preparation for an attack on the American public. Riley stood over the wreckage as dawn broke and remarked, "We were seconds from disaster. Financial networks, transnational links, and embedded advisors all pointed to a campaign planned well beyond a single border incident." As smoke drifted in contraband, burned in controlled pits, Riley gathered his team near the perimeter. "You did your job," he told them. "You kept the line secure. You stopped a force before most even knew it existed." Then, almost to himself, "They thought we wouldn't respond. They forgot who they were dealing with." From the lead drone's camera, the scene below looked deceptively peaceful. Armored trucks torn open, Marines standing watch as morning light touched the Rio Grande. But everyone there understood peace like that had been bought with seconds of action and the willingness to use force. The border held, and the message was unmistakable. Any force that crosses American soil will meet the same fate. In this desert, warnings are delivered with decisive response, not words.